Hello, travelers. Welcome to Reach the World. For over 20 years, Reach the World has used virtual exchange to inspire youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens. My name is Tim, and this week, together with Citi's E for Education campaign, we're going on a journey to explore how global citizens can put that valuable skill set to work as part of a global career. Throughout the week, we'll be connecting with Citi employees in financial capitals around the world. They've generously agreed to share their stories, observations, and tips for finding success in this highly interconnected global economy. Today, we're traveling to Johannesburg, South Africa, to speak with Kaori Chiba and Samantini Naidu. Kaori and Sam are joining us to talk about working, living, and thriving professionally in Johannesburg. But before we meet them, I want to welcome the teachers, students, Reach the World travelers, and early career professionals who are watching today. Feel free to use the YouTube chat bar to let us know you're here, where you're joining from, and of course, to share any questions you have for our guests as we go. And with that, let's journey to South Africa. Kaori and Sam, welcome to Reach the World.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great to be on you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to get right into it because I have a lot of things I want to know from you and questions to ask you. I feel so lucky to have you on this call with us today. So let's start with you and your global career path. Each of you, I'm sure, has had a different sort of journey to the job and position that you hold today. Maybe, Kaori, you can start first and tell us how you started down this path to working in a field where you are regularly interacting with people around the world.
Sure. So I was born in Cape Town. I'm sure everyone has heard of Cape Town, Table Mountain and beaches, just this little small town in Cape Town. And that's where I did my schooling. And I attended university as well at the University of Cape Town. I studied a finance degree, a business science finance degree. I actually started off doing marketing. But then some of the elders in my family said, if you want to make money, maybe think about finance, get into finance. So I switched and I studied finance. And while I studied, I was exposed to people that were from all over the place. They would come study at UCT. They would be from Mauritius, from the UK, but just a whole lot of different people. And that made me feel at the time that I also, wanted to go and explore the world and meet different people. So I always had the ambition of, when I start working, I actually want to move away from home. And when I started applying for jobs, I only applied to banks because all the banks are in Johannesburg. So that, I move away from home, from Cape Town when I go to Johannesburg. So I got into a graduate program with one of the local banks in Johannesburg, which got me away from home and, into Johannesburg, into the big financial hub. But then I was at that job for 7 years. I was on a FX product structuring desk. I enjoyed it, but I still had ambition to get into an international company. So my manager now contacted me and he asked if I wanted to come over. They were looking for someone at Citibank. And I didn't really think twice. I came over to Citibank and I'm still in the same kind of work line where I'm in foreign exchange and I sell financial products to corporates, and the corporates are based globally. So some of them can be in the UK, some of them can be in the US. So my interaction has now opened up and it's more diverse. So I have that, international aspect, meeting different people every day, speaking to people with different thoughts from different countries. So that's my personal journey. I'm still based in Johannesburg. And now work for a company that I've always wanted to work for in the sense that it's global. So with that, I'll pass over to Sam because I think her maybe might be a bit same, maybe a little different, but we'll hear Sam's journey now.
Thanks, Kiri. So I think very much parallels to Kiri in some ways, and in some ways not. So parallel in that I also come from a different city to where Citi is based. So I was born and completed all of my schooling in another coastal city in South Africa called Durban, and completed schooling and my university years as well at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Also similar in that I also studied business science with kind of focus around finance and economics. But I didn't really have much direction, in the sense that I didn't have any particular area of focus or idea as to what could be next, after that. I think I had a very strong affinity when it came to accounting. I mean, numbers in general, but I think accounting as a subject. And I just didn't want to go down the CA route. So the next best thing, I think, was to look at what else was there. And my career started off actually in FMCG. So it was a very short career, but I was there. I was at Unilever down in Durban. That's where they're based in South Africa. And after that, I joined Citi after about a year being at Unilever on what was Citi's grad program for markets. So it was a niche program in that year for markets, and particularly related to the FX side of the business, be it sales or trading. So what that opened up for me is that I got to spend time in London for, I think, about 8 weeks as part of that program. And obviously, you're going through this time with many people from the rest of EMEA, and obviously just many different cultures, many different backgrounds, and it's obviously completely different, very interesting to I guess experiences in South Africa. So that was great. And ever since I've been based in Johannesburg, at our office in Sandton, I support the FX sales desk, and our clients, which consist of both local corporates as well as global subsidiaries. And I think I would just add maybe one more thing in terms of sorry, I've lost my train of thought. In terms of looking at my career over the years, is that although it's been one role, because I've been at Citi for 10 years, although it's been one role, it has had the dimension to allow me to be a part of many different things with many different people across the globe. Thanks, Tim.
All right, thank you both. One of the common threads I heard in both of your career journeys is that by getting involved with financial institutions, global institutions, you had graduate school opportunities and increasing opportunities to, like Sam, I know you went to London for 8 weeks, and it just sort of increased your exposure and opportunities for this sort of global business world. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll maybe add on to that. Like in our job, at any day we may speak to someone that's in, Brazil, in I don't know, it's in like Bulgaria. Like every single day we talk to either people internally, like different stakeholders that are from a different country, or clients that may be situated in a different country. So you really are getting that global citizen aspect by working at an international company.
Do you have, can either of you pinpoint any specific things that you have to do really well in order to jump so freely from talking to someone in Brazil to Bulgaria to, wherever else is next within the geographic area that you work with? What are the sorts of skills that you need to be successful in that sort of job? Because not most people, or I would say a lot of people, deal with people locally. They deal with people within their own city or their own state or own country, but it takes a special skill set to be able to talk to so many different people with different languages, etc.
Yeah. So I think the easiest way is the fact that we internally engage a lot across borders and countries. So I think that already makes you to some degree comfortable with speaking to different nationalities and different levels within a company. So I think that in itself is probably the first part that I would say that you get from a big organization like Citi. And additionally, I would say that obviously there's cultural nuances you pick up on. There's language barriers. There's certain practices, but those things come across, or you pick them up as you would in engaging with people sometimes in your own country. The core, I guess, of a sales role is to be able to pick up on those nuances and listening and observing. So I would say, but I would definitely highlight obviously having the foundation of a large internal call it group to give you that background. Carrie, I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, I agree. I wouldn't say that I do anything different. I'm still myself, whether I'm speaking to someone in Brazil or speaking to someone in Mexico or speaking to someone in India. I guess it's business ethic as well, where you are professional. So I don't think that I change or have to change the way I interact. But that being said, you also have to be aware, as Sam said, there are some cultural nuances that to be aware of.
Okay, great. We'll get back to sort of some specific business skills that are really great, especially when you're dealing internationally with different sorts of people. But I wanted to sort of zoom in very specifically on Johannesburg, beautiful city of Johannesburg, where you both live and work. What is it like to live and work there? And what do you need to know about Johannesburg to be successful in that work environment?
Okay, I think, so Johannesburg is one of the bigger, call it metropolitans within South Africa. It's not the capital, but it is close. It is the hub of all financial activity. All of your banks are based here. A lot of your bigger corporations also based within what we call Sandton, the hub, the central hub within Johannesburg. It's a multicultural. I think you'll find a multicultural thread throughout South Africa, but I think Johannesburg particularly, and obviously, as most know, we have good weather most times of the year. It's a very social place. I would say from an ease of living, from a comfort of living. I know from looking at simple things like space, you may be able to get away with a lot more than in some other parts of the world. So I think from those elements that's really Johannesburg in a nutshell. But you'll find most companies, whether it be on the subsidiary side or the top tier JSE listed companies are Johannesburg based. So it is really a core of much of what's going on within South Africa.
And I'll just add on to that. So as Sam said, we are based in Johannesburg. We are based probably in the richest square mile of South Africa. The suburb is called Sandton. So that's essentially where all the big corporates are. They have new areas now where some corporates are based, but essentially Sandton was the place for all the like financial hubs and the corporates. We also, our office is a walking distance to the mall. So Sandton City Mall, like one of the best malls in Africa. You can buy whatever you want. And also, we're not big on public transport in South Africa in the sense that we all have our own cars and usually drive to get to one place or another, but we do have a train station and trains that were built, you could say about 7-8 years ago, that takes you from the airport to the financial hub to other areas, and that's also a walking distance. So a really nice area to be based in when you start working or throughout your career even.
Okay. Are there other areas in South Africa where you could work for a large corporation and interact with people around the world on an everyday basis, or is that all very concentrated in Johannesburg?
I think pre-COVID, it was very largely concentrated in Johannesburg. I would say, and Kerry can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say Cape Town would probably come in next from a dense populated area in terms of corporates, non-bank financial institutions, etc. But I think work from home has obviously changed a lot of that. But I guess to answer your core question, a lot of the activities around Johannesburg from a corporate perspective.
I may just want to add on to that. So if any student is looking to get into like a startup or fintech, a lot of those companies are based in Cape Town. They've just decided to go work where the beach is. I don't blame them. But, they are like small little pockets of international companies. Not all over the place, I would say Cape Town and Joburg specifically.
All right. Great. Thank you both. Let's move on to our third topic because this is very relevant information, especially for young people who have maybe recently had a study abroad experience or are early in their career and would like to incorporate this aspect of global competence and interacting with different people around the world on a daily basis. What can they do to make themselves strong job candidates for a work environment like the one in which you both work? Kyuri, you want to go first?
Sure. Yes, I will. So I think the first thing would be that no matter what company a student gets into, they need to have a passion for that industry, right? Like a student can't walk into banking and not like finance at all. There has to be some affinity, some passion for that. And once they figure that out, it's not always easy to even figure out what you want to do when you start working. Like, as I said, I was marketing and then I thought finance and I actually ended up loving finance, but it's finding that industry you want to get into. And then from there, I would think the competencies that you would need are general. So whether you're working in South Africa or you're working in another country, it would all be based on that job. But I say in general, or if I talk about my line of work, I would say a student needs to be analytical. They need to like solving problems. They need to be good with people and have that ability to interact with any person, no matter where in the world they are. And I think that comes with awareness, and also, just being a good person. So if I speak to someone else, it's going to come across as as how I am, right? So I don't know if it's really a competency, but just, it's just a basic human trait. And I think what else they would need is, so we've spoken about good like communication skills, analytical skills, problem solving skills. I would say attention to detail. And last two things would be innovation and creativity. I think it comes through in any job that you have, to have that ability to be innovative, to think a little bit outside the box. And there was something else that I wanted to mention, but it just slipped my mind. Sam, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add on to that.
I'll just add on one thing while you're trying to remember that. I would say also just to be open and to be maybe not resilient, because I think that may be strong of a word, but I think when I say open, I just mean sometimes you have an expectation as you come in, and obviously things change and things look different, and even through the interview processes with different organizations, you've got to find your cultural fit as well. So I think it's being open to those things, I mean, obviously having a sense of self, but also having a sense of the organization you're going into, and if that aligns to you.
All right, thank you both. I have one follow-up question, just based on something I've observed. I got to speak with one of your colleagues recently in Bangkok, and he was lovely and easy to talk to and just a wonderful person, just like both of you are. And I wonder if you can pinpoint a couple things that are just universal, like Kira, you mentioned, like be a good people person. What are like the traits that defy boundaries, that just like people respond to? If you were calling someone in another culture, or another country, no matter where you were calling, like what are a couple things that people recognize as just universal skills for success when dealing with other people?
So I did say be a good people person. I think I meant, well, you have to be a good people person, but you also have to be a good person. And I think that shows no matter who you're speaking to in whichever country. But to answer your question, the things that I can say stand out is just being helpful. So if someone's coming to you for something, like even if it's possibly not your job, and they're asking you something about your country, about a client in your country, just be helpful. And no matter where I go to in the world or who I speak to, it's just, I guess, being decent and aware. And one other thing that people always respond to is humor, in a very light sense, like friendliness, humorous. I think that's like universal. Sam, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add to that.
I mean, I think you've covered it, but I mean, because the thing that comes to mind first for me is just, I guess, that they can get that sense of authenticity, and coming across as authentic. And I think you've touched on that. And then, I mean, sometimes you have to sort of read the room, and if it requires directness or if it requires the more lighthearted side of things. But I think that's pretty much it.
And maybe just one more thing, if we do have time, that I want to mention is that like cultural norms within different countries. So you have to be really aware of that if you are speaking to someone in a country. Like, just to give a basic example, like I wouldn't make a joke about or talk about drinks if I was talking to someone that lives in an Islamic country, whether it be in West Central Africa or like Middle East. Because they don't drink. But I could have a conversation with someone in, I don't know, Brazil. So it's just being aware. And I think, it could actually take some reading up before you go to a different country or before you speak to a person from a different country, but just on a basic level, just know what what you can say and what's like an absolute no.
That's a very interesting point. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm curious, since you were both born and raised in South Africa, is there any cultural sensitivity that people outside of South Africa should know about dealing with people in South Africa?
I would say there's a big one. And this comes from the history of our country. So, we went through apartheid, and there was a separation that was put into place between Black and white people, Indian people, colored people, because South Africa is diverse, right? We have like every kind of race in South Africa. And I think it's just to be aware of the past, in the sense that, you can't use certain words that might be offensive. And I don't want to say racist, because, we've come a long way from that, but it's just to be aware of the past and not to make any joke or like, I think I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly, but just to be aware and sensitive to South Africa's past.
Sure. Yeah, Sam, do you have something you wanted to add?
No, I would have
Okay.
said the same. I don't think issues of race are unique to South Africa, but it is very ingrained in our history. So it's something that you should be aware of.
And maybe I can add on to that. In South Africa, there's a law that was passed, like you could say about 10 years ago. It's called Black Economic Empowerment. And it's very unique to South Africa. And this was put into place after apartheid, when obviously all the Black people at that time were not getting opportunities, because there was the whole subdivide between different races. So essentially that kind of, not regulation, but best practice framework, legislature was put into place to give people, whether they are Black or come from disadvantaged backgrounds, to also have similar opportunities. So it's like a company needs to employ a certain amount of people of different races. So that's maybe something that, could be read up about if someone's ever coming to South Africa.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's very helpful background. I want to end on a lighter note about your just personal experiences, what you like about where you live and work. If I were a first-time visitor to Johannesburg, what would I absolutely have to see or do while I was visiting Johannesburg? Sam, you want to go first?
Sure, I can. Look, I think I'm going to speak to the parts of the country in general, because like most other, call it like capital cities or financial hubs, there's very little to actually do in the actual hub. So I think when it comes to South Africa, we are very known for our game parks, our wine farms, beaches, lots and lots of nature. I think you'd be able to, even if you were in Johannesburg, do lots of outdoor things, hiking. So I think one of the benefits of being in South Africa is definitely the amount of time you can spend outdoors.
And then I'll add on to that. There's a lot of restaurants, so there's a lot of good food all over the place in Johannesburg, in Cape Town. And then there's a lot of cultural things that you could do. So you can go visit the township, you can have lunch in the township, and just see how people live. There's townships, there's suburbs, about South Africa, what you should know is that our inequality between rich and poor is huge. So there's a lot of things, like different areas that may be interesting to see how different people live. And then maybe one thing I know that would probably be on the younger people's mind, and if they're on TikTok, is our music that's been taking over the world. It's called Amapiano. So I'm pretty sure that they can, go find some places that have this music, learn the dance, because there's specific moves which I can't do, but there are specific moves to this kind of like South African music.
All right, wonderful. Kiri, if I was going to get a dish or a meal that was very quintessentially either from Johannesburg or just South Africa in general, what should I order at a restaurant?
I don't know if you can get it at a restaurant. You'll probably get it like at home, like with people from South Africa. It's called a braai mealie and pap. So a braai is a South African barbecue. And it's usually, obviously done outside, but lots of different flavors. And then it's like accompanied by pap, which is, I think it's like some kind of grain, which is very, very South African. But as I mentioned, there's, like so many different cultures that you could also get a really good Indian restaurant in South Africa, or a really good Thai restaurant that serves like noodles and ramen. So I wouldn't say that there's anything anymore that's South African specific, just because we have so many different cultures in our country.
All right, thank you, Sam. Anything to add to that? Anything?
No, no, I think Kiri's covered.
All right.
But yeah, we've, I think whilst we can say we're multicultural as a country, I think from a food perspective, that's one of the areas coming to Johannesburg or South Africa, you won't go wrong with.
All right, yum. Every time I end on a food note, I just want to eat lunch, no matter what time of day it is. I know you guys are closer to lunch than I am, so hopefully you can get some good lunch today. Thank you so much, Sam and Kiri, for joining us today, all the way from Johannesburg. Really appreciate you sharing your global career journeys with Reach the World students. It's been really fun to learn about your path and your advice for young people who are trying to join this global workforce. There are many more Citi Global Career Journey stops to come, so stay tuned. And if you missed any of our previous stops in London, Tel Aviv, Sao Paulo, Seoul, Bangkok, Singapore, Kampala, and many more, you can find those recordings at Reach the World's YouTube channel, where we've set up a special Citi Global Career Journey playlist. So special thanks to the Citi E for Education campaign and to all our many Citi volunteers for making this learning experience possible. Sam and Kiri, thank you so much. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks
Tim.
for the opportunity. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.